Hey, welcome everybody to the Read Write Mike podcast. Episode what? What is episode 9? I'm losing count here already. Welcome. And right now, as you know, in this portion of the podcast right now, as it exists, we're being curious about the vocabulary curriculum. And today we're going to talk about the other generating examples, situations, and context games. There's 5 of them, and we talked about 3 of them in the last episode, in the last podcast. And today we're going to talk about one that's called Who, What, When, Where, Why, How, and the other one's called Whose Job Is It Anyway? A couple of pieces of news. I was listening to the last episode, and I was thinking, like, did I just invite teachers to call their class dull? Because dull has a couple meanings, and both of them aren't positive. Dull either means boring, which is the case of the text that we're reading. I think it's the year of the dog, and so I think the characters are talking about something being dull and boring. But then the other meaning of dull is, not smart. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I just told teachers it's okay to call their classes dull. So I went and revised it. I'm not going to go back and change it. So if the mob wants to come after me and cancel me, they'll have that fodder among, gosh, Lord knows what else is in this curriculum. That's fun. I think of, as I write this, I think of ideal states and ideal classes that I've had where anybody who knows me personally knows that a good natured ribbing is never sort of uncalled for. It's a sign of love. So if you're getting sort of ribbed by me, it means I like you. So when I was saying things like, oh gosh, class, what a dull class you are, I meant that in a way of like, I really love this class and we're going to give it to each other, back and forth, the good natured ribbing. I am an older brother, so that's probably where that comes from. But anyway, I revised it in the curriculum to the teacher saying something else is dull because, I thought back, I'm like, maybe that's not the best. So, friends, colleagues, if you see anything else in there saucy like that, let me know. I'll consider revising it. But keep in mind that I never have any intent to denigrate and to undermine and to look down upon children. For goodness sake, I love students and teachers, and this is my passion. This is my calling, is to be a teacher. So let's talk about the other 2 generating examples games. And the first one we're going to look at is called Who, What, When, Where, Why, How. So right here, if you look on the page where it says day 6, if you're following us on the YouTube version of this podcast, otherwise you can just listen. I'm sharing a screen that shows one of the games, the Who, What, When, Where, Why, How game. And essentially the game is you, the teacher, will present a different question, a different context, and kids would have to explain how that in the real world that might exist using knowledge of a vocabulary word. And all I do is I write the questions. The first question is a who question. The next question is a what, when, where, why, how question. And so the directions sound like this. Readers, today I will ask you some questions about the vocabulary words we've been learning this week. These questions will present various scenarios that show each word in the real world. After I ask each question, turn and tell your partner your response and say why. For example, if I say, when might your teacher be dismissed from school? You might respond by saying, my teacher might be dismissed when all the students are at their next safe destination and when work is ready for the next day. That sounds just like kids, right? So, and then you'd ask them a series of questions that have to do with these words. And I believe this, as I'm looking at, is from the Reading History American Revolution unit. These are the words selected from that. So one may say, who might dismiss a basketball player from a team? Right. And kids might say, oh, maybe the coach might dismiss them for a team, maybe for breaking a team rule, because dismiss means to tell somebody it's time to go. And then what could a pencil be a symbol of? The vocabulary word being symbol, right? And kids might say, oh, pencils are a symbol for writing or school, because if you just show a pencil, people might think of school or writing, and so on and so forth. And you just go down and you ask a who, what, when, where, why, how question. And what kids are doing, again, in these types of games they're generating examples. They're transferring their knowledge of the word into the world. So it's showing a deeper level of knowledge. So that one is who, what, when, where, why, how. The next game I want to share with you is my absolute favorite of all of the games in all of the land, in all of the curriculum, in all the different types of games. This one's my favorite. And anecdotally, I found it's kids' favorite too, personally, myself. And this game is called Whose Job Is It Anyway? And it's a pretty simple game. What you do is you take your list of words and you create a list of occupations. And I think one of the best ways to do this is to make like a stack of cards, maybe like maybe make a stack of cards. One deck is the list of occupations, and on the other deck is the list of your vocabulary words. And essentially what you do is you hold up an occupation and a vocabulary word and you say to the class, how might these two go together in the real world? Let me show you what it looks like and sounds like in the curriculum. So in this game, one of the things that you'll see is that I list the jobs, right? I say police officer, athlete, chef, musician, postal worker, sanitation worker, doctor, cashier, lawyer, scientist, firefighter, artist. Now you might add or subtract to this list or pick jobs that are relevant to the students in your community, right? And the directions sound like this. Readers, today I'm going to put together different types of jobs with our vocabulary words. When I put the two words together, tell your partner how those two words would go together in real life. For instance, if I held up a card that said chef and a card that said elegant, I might say, the chef was making an elegant dinner for very wealthy guests. Ready? I had one deck of jobs, and then those distractions. You have the cards, and so I find you just like shuffle up those decks, the deck of the occupations and the deck of the vocabulary words, and you just hold them up. And kids go to town. I had so much fun with this game when I've piloted it and worked on it with kids. I remember I was at a school in Minnesota. I think the teachers were working with the book Because of Winn-Dixie, and they wanted to pick the word preacher because there's the preacher in the book who's the dad of Opal, and as a vocabulary word. And then I think one of the jobs was firefighter, so it was almost like an occupation when we played this game. And I remember the whole class being, all the teachers being having a good time when this 8-year-old said, oh, a preacher and a firefighter could go together because in one hand he's holding his Bible, and the other hand he's holding the fire hose. And it was just a fun example of how that is true. I think the key to this is making sure that you tell kids how do these words go together in the real world, because what may happen is they might make up fantasy type things, which on one level is okay. I think, some of your occupations could be like, I could imagine another version of this game. Ooh, I'm just thinking of this now. Like maybe you say like, think of different monsters and how that would appear. How would vampire and the word, what was the word we just looked at? How would the word vampire and elegant go together, right? How would zombie and disperse go together? How would a cyclops and ragged go together? That's actually a good idea for a game. I'm just thinking of it now. I don't think I'm the first to think of it, but that could be another version of this where you can think of something fantastical and connect with the word and how those might go together. The point is, whether you pick it in the real world or whether you pick it in a fantasy world, that kids are showing their knowledge of the word and they're transferring it to different parts of their life. And so all of these games tend to be kids' favorites, and they tend to be further down the line. The reason they don't come up first is because they reveal a deeper knowledge of a word. The kids can transfer it. And once kids can start transferring the word in their speech, which is kind of what they're doing in these games, these generating example games, well, the next step is to do it in writing. And as I've said before, it doesn't take much to get kids to transfer these words into the writing if they know the word deeply, have been practicing it recently, and have been having fun doing it. It's just going to be natural, because if you know something, you'll use it. If you've been practicing it recently, it'll be in your short-term memory and soon to be into your long-term memory. And if you had a fun time, well, you have a good association, a good memory with the word. So again, you're going to be more apt to use it. All right, so that'll bring us to the end of our games. I think the only other piece of news that I can think of is Kimberly Fox, our chart maker, and I have been trying to think about what should we call the curriculum. And so maybe we'll put out a little survey of like, what do you think we should call this? We've got some ideas, but I hope you're all doing well. I hope you're all having a good time getting ready for this upcoming school year. And as I've said, I'm really excited to see how it goes as you roll it out. So keep the feedback coming in, posting it online, what have you. Till then, till next time, take care, be well. Later.